Welcome to Your Brand Amplified, the podcast where we interview marketers, publicists, and brands to learn their stories, what makes them tick, and tips and tricks that make a difference. I am so thrilled to have Sue Reynolds of Carmine Media on the show today, talking about some of my favorite topics: leadership, communication, women in business. Sue, thank you so much for being here to lend your expertise.
Oh, I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes. So you have had a career that has primarily been in the digital space, it seems. I'd love to hear what about that attracted you at first, or how did you find your way down that rabbit hole?
So I am Gen X, and we grew up without these devices in our homes, right? And I was studying, believe it or not, I was in a 2-year business program, and they were just introducing computers, laptops, PCs to our world. And we had a computer lab. And for some reason, I just had a knack for it. Those were the days where there was no Windows interface. You were primarily in DOS giving commands. And I just could conceptualize that where a lot of my peers couldn't. So I ended up running the computer lab. And before long, I ended up just really understanding the way these systems worked because I understood DOS. And before long, I was the computer resource person for the hospital where I was working. And then that morphed into more of a marketing role, but in the digital space. So when we went online with dial-up, I was marketing the dial-up company I was working for, and so on and so forth. And it just, one door opens and you walk through it, and pretty soon you're a digital marketing manager for a social media team and a communications team that supports multiple brands. That's my full-time job. And then I also own my own business doing the same thing for my small business customers. So yeah, I've been in the tech marketing space for my whole career, really.
Well, there's lots of questions that I have for you, but one thing that strikes me is you have your full-time day job, if you will. You also do this on the side. You've written a book. How do those play together? Because I know a lot of particularly women in our generation are looking at, I have this full-time job, I'm wanting to transition. Can I use these skills and create my own company, or do I need to quit and start something? You know, there's so much question and almost despair about where to move and how to move properly.
There is no properly. I think that you don't have to have all of that figured out when you go into business. I launched Carmine Media when I was trying to position myself as a thought leader for tech marketing, for social media marketing, when social media marketing was very new. There were very few of us in the spaces online talking about how to do social media properly for business. Mm-hmm. Facebook was still relatively new to people. Twitter, what the heck is that?
Right.
And my company, fortunately, I had the opportunity to take this role where I had to teach myself how to do social media marketing. We all figured it out. But I created Carmine Media out of the need to experiment and learn how to use WordPress, how to use social media marketing, while not necessarily doing any damage to the major brand that I was working for. And out of that, I was able to experiment. I was able to learn how to blog for SEO, learn how to use my blog for then what turned out to be my passion, which is helping women grow into leadership roles. But that didn't happen until, I would say, COVID. So maybe 10 years into my business, I morphed Carmine Media, or I should say I added to the service portfolio these speaking, lecturing, coaching on topics that are more about women in leadership and less about how to use social media marketing. Although people still need that, and I still do it. And I still have clients, small businesses and nonprofits that use my services for social media marketing, which does help me experiment for learning about what my team does on a day-to-day basis. I need to be in those weeds, or it's hard for me to manage them and what they're doing if I'm not.
Yeah.
So it ended up dovetailing in a way that came together for me, but I didn't plan it out. Like we were just talking about, a door opens, you walk through it. Another door opens, you walk through it. and you sort of figure out how it all fits together.
Well, and I appreciate the pivot. We all need a good pivot moment too, where you realize, yes, I'm still offering this, but there's this other opportunity that I'm seeing. There aren't enough people, particularly women with experience, who are speaking to other women and helping them learn how to be good leaders, helping them figure out what that leadership track can look like. And this is a conversation I feel like I've been having with a lot of women lately, is that when you get to a certain point in your career, still in 2024, you often have to make a decision between, well, I have my family that I really want to pour into, or I can take this job that they're going to require me to travel even more than I already travel. My kids are just growing up. I'm not going to have that, quote, balance, which we all know is not real. But, right? And I've had to make those decisions too of, oh, do I want to be in this full-time position where I make a great salary, but I'm expected to work 60, 70 hours a week? Mm-hmm. Or do I want to pour into my parents who are older and live in different countries? You know, my daughter who's in high school and going to be graduating in a couple of years, all of these different factors. So what are some of the things that you learned when you were on this journey to figure out, this is the sweet spot for me, is coaching and helping women figure out their leadership track and what that really means for them?
Well, there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
Let me start with the pivot. Let's rewind back to, okay, it's 2020. We're all home.
Yeah.
And TikTok becomes the thing that a lot of us turn our attention to because it's fun and we're able to connect with people in a way that no other app really allowed. I mean, Facebook has your friends, but it's not interest group. And the algorithm of TikTok was just astonishing at the time. It could read your mind and know what to send you next. And so I started playing around with that. I mean, again, this is an emerging social media platform. I need to know what's on the horizon, but I can't experiment with a big brand. I need to do this on my own. So I started putting out content around what I was passionate about. And my mantra with my team is that the audience will teach you what works. You need to do more of that. So could I get on there and talk about how to use social media? Absolutely. There were people doing that, and I follow a lot of them. There's wonderful people showing us how to use Canva, how to use Excel. I mean, you can learn anything on the platform. It's amazing. And it's a niche marketing tool, of course. But when I started posting content about women empowerment, and I don't mean you go girl, girl boss. I don't mean that kind of thing. I mean, stop holding yourself back with self-limiting beliefs. Don't minimize your language so that you don't offend the men in the room. Eliminating things like, I'm just following up. I'm sorry to bother you, but I have a question. Those kinds of minimizers. I started posting content about that. And it blew up. I became weirdly famous on TikTok. Like all of a sudden, I was gaining followers by the thousands. Could not believe it. And I realized, there's something to this. I'm going to start creating more offerings around this. I'm going to start coaching. I'm going to write a book. I'm going to create an online class because there's definitely something to this. The audience is telling me they want more of this. People were asking me, have you written a book? Where can I buy it? Well, no, I haven't written a book, but maybe I need to, That being said, I started leaning into this new career of mine when both my boys were on the cusp of graduating from high school. I have twin boys. They were going away to college, and I was losing two children at the same time. I could not have leaned into a career with this amount of intensity if I were trying to balance still having children at home, being the marching band mom, which I was, going to their competitions and all their football games and all of that stuff, which I did, all of that. There is no way I could have put this amount of energy into a business of my own and a brand new career and have done that. I do think that as women, we can have it all, but I don't know that we can have it all at once. So I made the decision to lean in once my nest was empty.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's be real. I don't have children at home that I'm raising. I don't have a pet. So I have a garden. I have a spouse that I cook for. I have a house that I maintain and clean and keep the way I want. But I don't have to balance raising a family. Yeah. So my entire passion right now and focus outside of, my partner in my home is this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's very helpful. And I do see a lot of women in corporate who are at that point. Okay, one kid has left the nest, another one's about to leave the nest. Do I want to stay in this job, in this career? Is it fulfilling, or do I want to start my own business? But what I hear you saying too is that there could be a place for them where they are. Maybe they need to change their mindset. They need to use different language. And that's a lot about what your book is about, leadership linguistics.
Yeah. That's about negotiating and using language to influence the other person's reaction. We have influence in our conversations. And yes, we can influence the outcome of our conversations with each other. And that's where the leadership coaching comes in, right? How do you word things so that you're more apt to get what you want? How do you approach a salary negotiation? How do you get what you need from your team members when they won't respond to your requests for information? That's what I've leaned into, honestly, because that's what my audience wants. Those are the videos that get the most engagement, the most questions, the most views and reach. I can always tell when something's going viral because I start getting requests for coaching in my inbox.
Really?
Like, okay, what's doing that? And you go back and look at your content. Okay, it was a video about stop saying, I'm sorry to bother you, but I have a question. Mm-hmm. We're so trained to do that. And I think to your other point about how do I know when to lean in if I want to start my own business, just start it and you'll figure it out. Maybe it'll languish for a year or 2, 3 while you fiddle around and try to figure out what is it that I want to do with this.
Right.
And maybe you're feeling unsatisfied in your corporate job because it did provide the balance you needed. Mm-hmm. When your children were home. So you were making sacrifices on the career side so that you could balance your home life and your parenting. Now your children are walking out the door, as they should, and they need to. And now your career isn't fulfilling in a way that you wanted. So start the business and see what happens. The audience will teach you what works if you listen to them.
Yeah. So many kudos to you for going viral on TikTok. I know that TikTok is a huge search engine for the younger generations, but I also love seeing women in our generation really own the fact that we're the ones who blazed these trails, right? So all of the younger people, and I get told this by people who help people go viral, like AJ Kumar, who works with Neil Patel and Nikki Haskell and Non-Toxic Dad. And he said, you need to be doing more of this kind of content because all the people who are on there talking about brand this or brand that have maybe been in business for a year or 2. They don't actually have the lived experience so I can see why you would go viral because you have this experience, you've lived through it yourself, and you know what to share. So I love that. And I'm like, I don't go on TikTok as much as I should, but now I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to search and go and follow your TikTok. I think I'm already following your Instagram, but I'd love to hear, because I'm also a big proponent of, I need to test everything out so that when I'm talking to people about it, and for me, it's mostly my grad students because I teach university, but I teach digital media. So I need to be able to share, here's what's going on right now with this trend, or here's what you need to be paying attention to, or this tool or tip or trick. So I love that you try these things out so that you are better armed with the right information as well.
Yeah, my team could be easily my children, or actually they're younger than my boys. My boys are in their early 30s. A lot of my team members are in their 20s. Mm-hmm. And here I am, I'm this Gen X in her 50s. So I need to use these tools, not just dabble in them, but I need to be fully immersed in them so that I understand what are the latest trends. What does audience want? How does the Instagram reel algorithm work versus TikTok versus Facebook? And I'll be honest with you, though, the content that I post on TikTok that gets the most attention is also the content that gets the most attention on Reels and on Facebook Reels. Nice. And I'm talking vertical video. And the reason for that is there's still people at the other end of these devices and these apps, and they all want the same thing. Mm-hmm. How it's served up to them may be different on the different digital mediums. And maybe there's some small changes. There's differences in the algorithm as far as, what we react to and how it learns from us.
Right.
At the other end of the computer or the device is a person that clearly wants to consume this content. So what has made me successful on TikTok has also parlayed into growing Instagram and using Facebook Reels.
Fantastic.
So yeah, I've become known on those platforms too for the same exact content. It all leads to the same landing page. Just how are people going to discover me?
Yeah.
And I want to immerse myself in these platforms so that I can better coach and lead a team of marketers to success, because I'm in the trenches with them learning what works.
Well, and you just talked about vertical video, and I've heard from some experts that video SEO is very, very important these days, not just traditional SEO and putting keywords into blog posts and things like that. So I'd love for you to talk about what you're seeing right now with your clients and with yourself, with your own brand that's working in all these different social platforms, and what you think is going to be next.
Yeah, it's about building trust. It's about building authority. And yes, SEO is still important. I mean, of course, you need to be found or else no one is going to buy your services. But the trust piece is about being known. Mark Schaefer wrote a terrific book a few years ago. He's a technology futurist, and I follow him. I think he's awesome. Everything he's ever written is just brilliant. He wrote a book called Known a few years ago, and about how to become known in a niche industry.
Right.
And I think that the word known is something that really now parlays into trust. If your brand is known, that's what you're leveraging for search. For example, people are asking me to coach them. They're not Googling coaches in XYZ area.
Right.
They're seeing me and something that I said is resonating with them. And then they're going to my Facebook page, and then they're going to the link on my profile, and then they're finding my website.
Yep.
So it's because they already know me. Now they might later Google my name and find me. So Google is leading them to me. But if they Googled coach in, Ohio, or I'm not going to show up because there are people who are paying a lot of money for ads to show up in that space.
Yeah.
And they show up, but do you know them? Do you trust them? That's where I'm seeing the Gen Z folks using TikTok as a search engine. They're looking for what they want within the search bar of these platforms. They're not going to Google. And the reason for that, I think, is it's not the latest information. If something's happening right now, you go to Twitter to find out, what are people saying? What's going on? I remember when we all saw that Notre Dame Cathedral was on fire a couple of years ago. If you Google that, you might see a news covering it. But you go to Twitter, people have real time. They're posting videos because they're standing right there filming it. Yeah. It's happening right now. You might see a news story about it in a few hours that's posted to the web that Google will serve up and index and find for you. But it's not it's not real time. And I think Gen Z is all about trust, what their peers are recommending, and what's the most up-to-date information.
Yeah. Well, trust, authenticity, transparency, that you have the same values system.
Oh, I'm so glad you're saying this. Yes.
These are all things that you and I would think would be natural things to lead with, but surprisingly, a lot of people haven't necessarily realized that, or they're too afraid to put themselves out there.
Sure.
Right. So all of those things. And that's part of what I always try to instill when I'm having conversations and in our classes, because we do talk a lot about women in leadership, or why are there not more women directors in film and TV, or why are women pigeonholed in social media, and looking at recent surveys, right? And so how do we get how do we continue to get diverse voices and women's voices out there in these leadership positions where we can effectuate change? So I can talk about that all day long.
Me too. And a lot of it is getting us to understand that we need to provide visibility to our work.
Yeah.
That we do need to, I'm going to put this in air quotes, we do need to brag about ourselves, or, toot our own horn, not in a way that's bombastic or blatantly, it just sarcastic or, we don't need to be jerks about it.
Right.
But if we don't put our work out there, no one knows we're doing it.
Yeah.
So it's important to be, once again, to be known, whether it's in your corporation, whether it's in your niche space that you're marketing, but it's also important to empower the men in the room and other women in the room to champion the cause of bringing more diversity into our leadership.
Yeah.
So we're not going to change gender bias all by ourselves here. We're not going to fix it. We're not going to say, oh, that should go away, because it's going to be a slow cultural change. And it is happening. And you said at the beginning of our conversation, we're standing on other people's shoulders who blazed this trail before us. We're continuing to do that. And of course, we're making progress, but we're not there yet. So yes, we need to continue to shed light on this important discussion, I think.
Wow.
And it's clearly something that women want.
Oh, absolutely.
Because when I post about it, boy, are they there to listen and comment and ask questions and ask for more.
Yeah, this is, I think, one of those, it's so sad to me almost that it's still kind of a secret and that more women are willing to go and just say, yes, this is what I'm dealing with right now, and be vulnerable. And so I just really appreciate the fact that you do this work so that you can help women find a safe space to land and to follow and to interact with you, whether it's reading your book, following you on social media and learning tips, or working with you directly.
Well, I had those self-limiting beliefs. I had them myself. When I think back to myself in the 20s, you and I were, if we're Gen X, we grew up, we're products of the 70s and the 80s, which in a lot of ways was a backlash to the 60s women's liberation and, more protest freedoms. By the time we were coming up there, the pendulum had swung, as it always does, the other way. So women were getting demeaned for working outside the home in the 80s. My mother was getting letters from my grandmother about how dangerous it was going to be for my sister and I to be home with latchkey children.
Right?
Latchkey children.
I was a latchkey child.
It was selfish for women to want a career. Women should be selfless. It's like we swung that pendulum the other way. And then you and I were raised under those conditions, or some of us were. It depends on the progressiveness of the parents in our household. But we were right back to the 1950s mentality where women should be at home. And, I remember when my mom couldn't have her name on a checking account, couldn't have her name, right? That wasn't that long ago. And so I grew up with those same self-limiting beliefs that I was selfish to want a career. I should be only concerned with helping other people and selfless and, a mom and a wife and a stay-at-home. I believed all that.
Yeah.
I was taught that. Our society taught us that.
Yeah.
So I had to push through those and come out the other side. And now, so I've been there. I've walked that walk. I know what that feels like. I know what the guilt feels like. I know what the shame feels like. I know how you have to change your framing of that and how much of it was culturally imposed. And it's good to talk about those things. And it does resonate with women my age, especially because they got those same messages.
Yeah. We could just speak for hours, I think, because you're just making me think about, in my family, women worked because they wanted to. Even my grandmother on my American side was a social worker, did a lot of different things. She went to school and got her master's in social work at a time when not a lot of women weren't doing that. My mom, my grandmother on my Thai, Laotian side, she was a business owner. So we were used to seeing women work. But then I think, to your point, because of these social constructs, when I got married, I was like, I'm not going to work anymore. I'm just going to stay home and raise my daughter and make gourmet meals every night and get really into charity work. And I did do that. But then I got into the smug married place where you are like, this is just, nothing's ever going to change. And then you get divorced and you have to face that guilt and the realities of like, I need to earn a living.
Yes.
I'm not going to always be there with my daughter for every moment. She might be the last person to get picked up at school, and figure out who I was again. And I think that is what so many people are struggling is, how do we get rid of the social constructs and know what's right for us and be okay with that, but then also be really honest with our kids, whether they're sons, daughters, other genders, right? Like that we are really honest with our kids in these conversations so that they don't make the same mistakes, that they can make their own path and they realize that it's okay.
Yeah, you talked about transparency on social media. That same transparency applies in real life, right?
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean let it all hang out and share all the dirty laundry, but it does mean, we're people and our lives go through stages. And yeah, especially if you do get divorced, which I did. And you're right. If you have told yourself that your primary goal, and not only goal, but your primary purpose on this earth is to be a wife and a mother and a homemaker, and then you go through a divorce and you have an identity crisis on your hands. And I think there's a lot of women that probably have been through that, when you have to get through the guilt and the shame and the rules that someone else told you were true about you. You have to push through all that, and it's hard. It is painful, hard work. And when you come out the other side, you realize, wait a minute, all of that was made up by someone else and imposed on me through our culture.
Right.
And I believed it. And so that's how I saw myself. And I don't have to see myself that way. I can see myself how I want.
Yes. I also find it fascinating that you've gone viral on social media for speaking the truth about this. But at the same time, we see this whole trend about trad wives and very traditional. And
Here goes the pendulum.
Yeah, it's the pendulum. But then I'm like, they're going to be in the same place in a few years that we've been through. And they're going to have to be rediscovering and feeling okay, sharing their own voice and living in their own power as somebody who's just a person without a label of wife, mother. And yes, you might still be those things, but you also have to stand in your power and be yourself.
Yeah. This is husband's name, right? Yeah. I mean, I've seen that and I've kind of rolled my eyes, I'll be honest with you, because I'm not sure how much of it is really a culture shift or how much of it is just to grab eyeballs and attention. I haven't decided yet whether they're just trying to poke. Yeah, who knows? Well, I guess we'll find out. But the pendulum swings and here we go. And are we swinging back to that? I don't know. But ultimately, it moves forward. And we find ourselves having this discussion here where we can speak the truth about this in a way that hopefully touches other women who have gone through a similar identity crisis, if you will, or even just some of the guilt around, working and having the family and being selfish and the things that we were taught. And yes, my grandmother worked on the Panama Canal. I mean, she was a feisty, divorced, independent woman who still bought into the idea that her grandchildren were going to be latchkey children if my mom got a job.
Wow. Oh my
Isn't that wild?
That is.
So here she was, like, somehow she didn't see that she also blazed that trail. I don't know. It's the culture.
This is going to be a funny tee up, but I've had a lot of conversations with men recently where they're finding more work-life balance. So I'm not going to ask you about work-life balance. I'm going to ask you about work-work balance, because you do have this position managing a team, managing large accounts for different brands. Then you also have your coaching, which you're very passionate about. I think we all have all these different hats we wear. I'm a professor, I'm a podcaster. I also like to hold workshops on branding and all this other stuff. So how do you put those together and make sure that you're giving yourself enough space to still take a break when you want to, or enjoy time with your partner, or go visit your sons, or just take a vacation, or just get off of social media for a weekend?
I'm glad you asked that. First of all, I'm very passionate about what I do. So it's not drudgery. I'm not dragging myself through the workday. I mean, there are days when I do, but for the most part, I really love what I'm doing, both for my corporate job as well as my own business. That being said, I'm ruthless about my calendar. And weekends are off limits. I will not coach. I'm not taking speaking engagements. I won't do that on the weekends so that I can spend some quality time with my partner. I will work into the evenings. My coaching is done in the evenings or during lunches. Sometimes I'll do a lunch coaching session. So I'm ruthless about my calendar And I do protect my own time because I know that if I don't, I'm burnt out by Fridays typically. I need a reset over the weekend and I can feel it. I need to be in nature. I need to be outside and get some exercise.
Yeah.
And then I just feel how much that does for me, just even if it's an hour, how much that'll reset my negative thinking, or just I can tell when I'm getting burned out and I need a break. And yes, I take vacations. No, I don't stay off of social media on them because I blog. I am a travel blogger as well. So I'm constantly, but I love it. I'm constantly, this could be a reel. I'll do a travel reel, but that's for fun. I'm entertained by that.
Yeah.
It's a passion of mine and I like it. It's creative. It's fun. I like the photography aspect of it. Yeah. I like the video component of it. So I'm enjoying myself when I do it.
Good.
It's not drudgery.
Yeah.
Thankfully.
Yeah. I'm not great at my calendar management. That is something I'm always working on, and I'm always buying new planners, but then my ADD kicks in and I can't write everything out that I need to make sure that everything, matches. But this weekend I was really good about my weekend and not answering texts from people, but I also really love what I do and I'm so passionate about it as well. And so my whole thing is the joy of missing out. I'm not afraid to say no to things because they are not something that is what I'm really passionate about, what's going to help me move forward, what's going to help other people in my life move forward, or pour into my family. So I've been saying no to some of those other things I would have kept on doing and burned myself out on, volunteer work, things like that. So I'm like, you know what? There's a time and place for everything. And so this is where I'm going to be right now. But the calendar, I need to get better about the calendar. So I'm going to take this as my cue since that's something that you said.
I'm so glad you mentioned the saying no. I do a lot of saying no to things. Now, if I think that they can move my career forward or they're an opportunity that fits something that I'm wanting to do, then I make room for that. I say yes. But yeah, I say no to things too. Like I said, that goes back to being ruthless about my calendar and my time. If I don't want to do something, for the most part, I'm going to say no. And I'm unapologetic about it. I don't make excuses as to why I can't do it. No is a complete sentence, right? So no, I'm sorry, that's not going to work for me. Sometimes you can say yes later. Oh, that doesn't work this Thursday, but how about, next Wednesday? Oh, I'm unavailable for that. Let's do next Thursday. Those are okay to say too. We need to be ruthless about protecting our time so that we are able to, like I said, reset and give ourselves that peace, that balance that you were talking about. Are we always in balance? Heck no. I can tell when I'm getting burned out. And then I know that I need to do something to bring it back into balance.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yes, I'm ruthless about, but it's digital. I do, because I'm digital. My calendar is digital. Everything's online so that it's seamless from my phone to the computer.
Yeah.
And I always know where I'm supposed to be, when I'm supposed to be there. And I try to use the calendar to put the details of the event so I'm not looking. I try to be very organized so that I'm not spending time looking for things I can't find or trying to find the details for some things. I don't like to fritter my time away on those things. I want to spend my time doing the thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is one of the clients that you've worked with that is one of your favorite stories?
Oh, I have a lot. A lot of my clients are so much the same.
Wow.
I find that it doesn't matter whether they're moving into a VP role, whether they're moving into a C-suite role, they all have the same fears, the same struggles. They are worried about being liked. They are having trouble managing conflict because we're supposed to be nice.
Right.
We're not supposed to deal, we're supposed to placate. And so they don't have the skills to deal with conflict because we're supposed to avoid it. And, a lot of it's done with a passive sort of, and it's not effective, the ways that we've been taught to deal with conflict. So I end up dealing with the same issues, no matter where they are in their career, even if it's a VP role. And they're so genuine about wanting to be a good leader and so earnest about caring for their team, which is wonderful. And they don't know how to set boundaries around their time, like we just talked about. They're not sure how to say no to things that are non-promotable tasks, such as planning the office Christmas party, or taking the notes at the meeting, or making sure that you bring the coffee or cleaning up after the meeting. Those are always things that fall to the women. And those are things that take up time. They're non-promotable. You're not going to get any credit for doing them. And I guess my answer to your question is, what stands out to me is that this is a common theme throughout almost all of my coaching clients. They all struggle with this.
I'm so struck because I just had a conversation last week with our last live session in class for my graduate students. And we were talking about all these different concepts and women and gender and, you know, being a minority or being trans and working in this field and like how we navigate these different topics. And one of my students, you know, she's a little bit older than the rest. She's not just fresh out of undergrad. She's not in her 20s. She's had a full career, a full life, and works in Guantanamo Bay. And she was talking about how she's a leader for her division, but she's the only Black woman. You know, there's one Black man. She's the only woman, and she's the only Black woman in the room when they have the whole leadership team get together and have meetings. And she's always the one who gets asked, did you pick up the snacks? Did you do this? Did you do that?
Oh.
And she's like, this is not my job. I am equal to you. I have the same job title as you. I am head of a division because of my skill set. So it's just baffling to me sometimes that we have just generations of this behavior and these mental constructs that we need to dispel and disseminate. So I feel like you almost need to have a class for men as well to them get it.
And there are easy solutions to that. For example, rotate that around.
Exactly.
You know, so everybody has to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And assign people to, all right, who's on the cleanup crew this time? Who's on the snacks? Who is putting together the agenda? Who's taking the notes? Make sure those are rotated around. That's a leadership function. And just do that. And now it's not falling to the one African American in the room who now, because she has to do this, she's not able to contribute to the meeting the way the rest of the men at the table are because she's taking the notes. Or, you know, she's cleaning up and the rest of them are continuing the meeting after the meeting outside, building those relationships, saying, hey, let's get together and talk about this some more. Hey, put something on my calendar. She's inside putting stuff in the trash. Yeah. And now she's completely shut out from those opportunities. And that's a real issue that does happen. It's a real problem that if you're in a leadership role, whether you're male or female, you can easily mitigate that by saying we're going to rotate these tasks around so that they don't fall on one person or one gender every time.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. Why didn't I talk to her about that advice? That's a great way to mitigate the situation. In your book, Leadership Linguistics, do you use case studies or modeling, mirroring, things that people can go through to start putting different language into their minds when they're going to go ask for a raise or a promotion or be able to speak without being the kind of shy or, you know, more tempered, sweet person?
The book is meant to be sort of a cheat sheet on easy language changes that you can make so that you come across as more assertive, not aggressive, and not passive aggressive, just plain assertive, in ways in which navigate still the assertive backlash, because there is an assertive backlash. When women are assertive, we're sometimes seen as pushy, overbearing. Oh, she came on too strong. You have all of those pushbacks when if a man said the same thing, they would be labeled as, wow, that's some really leadership potential. Oh, I can see he's going to be a great leader. And the woman is pushy or bossy, as the little girls are labeled, right? So those kinds of things do exist. And it's a tightrope that we walk when we decide to carry ourselves assertively. For the most part, though, it's definitely worth it. And so my book is about ways in which to use language to project an assertive executive presence. And there are some, like, instead of asking why, ask what. So let me give you an example. Why didn't you have this report done by Friday? What kept you from completing the report by Friday? I'm curious. What happened? Those are the kinds of things, those are changes in language, just little tweak.
Anna.
Your podcast was great yesterday, but I think if you had changed the lighting, it might have been better. Boy, your podcast was great yesterday. And I think better lighting could really help you. So it's but and, right?
Yeah.
Those kinds of things. That's what my book is based on. So it's not meant to be like read as a narrative. It's almost like, remember Cliff Notes?
Yeah.
Back in the day, it's more like a series of Cliff Notes on language changes that are easy to make, but you wouldn't necessarily think of, that help you win arguments, that help you negotiate, help you get more of what you need. How many of us send an email when we need something and get no response? No response, right? None. It's just out there and nobody responds. And meanwhile, you're getting paid to do this job and you can't get what you need. Well, how did you word it? Did you say, I'm sorry to bother you, but when you get a moment, could you possibly look at... That might be why you didn't get a response.
Carmine Media, where did the name come from?
My favorite color is red.
Uh-huh.
I love red. I don't know why, but I'm drawn to red. And so Carmine is a red color. It's the name of a red color of fire and strength.
Ooh.
So I chose the word Carmine to represent the fire and the strength. This here is Carmine red. It's the actual Carmine red. If you look it up, it's the hex code for the color red. And so I'm always wearing red, or it's just a trademark thing now for me. So that's where it came out of years and years ago when I was picking a name. And of course, it was media, because at the time I was doing social media and digital media marketing. Now it's more into a leadership role, but I kept the name because add fire and strength to your leadership goals is still something that works for me.
I was going to say, I saw that on your website. So
yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that works.
And Carmine Media is the best place for people to go to learn about all of the different things. I saw that you have podcasts that you've been on. You have when you're speaking, you have all your social media links linked to your book.
Yes, it's all right there. And if you happen to go on my social media, I have a special, like a landing page that's optimized for mobile from my social media that kind of summarizes all the things in a mobile friendly, basically a bunch of links to all the things that I do, my book, my classes, my coaching, even the merch store that I have. I'm building out some merchandise right now, candles with witty sayings for women and mugs that say, opinion loading that you could bring to your next meeting, just using humor around women being assertive in a way that might be fun for merch. I'm just dabbling in that right now.
That's super fun.
I thought that might be fun to do. And the book.
Yeah, fantastic. And so I always like to ask if you have a favorite quote, mantra, verse, family motto, just words of wisdom that stick with you all the time or that are resonating particularly with you right now.
Oh, yes. So in the 90s, as I was going through this identity crisis, I really discovered the group Indigo Girls.
Oh, yeah.
I loved their music. I still do. And the song Closer to Fine made me really wake up and realize that I was not the only one that had this construct of what I was supposed to be and this box that I had put myself in. And so the lyric from that song, that's the less I seek my source for some definitive, the closer I am to fine. And for me, that really speaks to quit looking somewhere outside yourself for some definitive about who you're supposed to be. It's in here. Who you're supposed to be is whoever you want to be, and you'll be closer to fine when you realize what it is. So that's my mantra. That's an Emily Salier's quote, and I still hold it dearly. It helped change my life.
It's evident that you weave that into everything you do. So appropriate.
She's good.
Yeah. Well, this has been such a fun conversation. Thank you so much for coming on Your Brand Amplified.
Thank you for having me. It's been a wonderful conversation with you. I really appreciate the time to talk about these important topics.
Yeah, I do too. And I'm excited to read your book and share it with my students and everybody else.
Thank you. It's finally back online. So yes, thank you. I've got a paperback, digital, and I just released the audiobook on Audible. So fun stuff.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you to everybody who's also watching or listening to this episode of Your Brand Amplified. I am Annika Jackson here with Sue Reynolds from Carmine Media, and I'll be back again with another amazing guest tomorrow for your listening pleasure. Want more? Check out amplifywithannika.com or follow me on socials at amplifywithannika.